When Meghan Markle stepped away from the royal family, many believed the tension would finally settle, that distance would bring peace, clarity, even healing. But what happened next told a very different story, because instead of things getting better, something shifted, quietly, steadily, and for many observers, it only seemed to get worse. At the time, the decision to step back was framed as a necessary move, a way to create space, a way to reduce pressure, a way to protect both personal well-being and the institution itself. For some, it felt like a reset button. The assumption was simple: remove the source of tension and the system stabilizes. But institutions like the royal family don't work that way. They are built on tradition, perception, and carefully maintained balance. And when that balance is disrupted, even slightly, the effects don't just disappear, they ripple. And that's exactly what began to happen. After the departure, something subtle but significant changed. The narrative didn't fade, it expanded. Public interest didn't decline, it intensified. Every appearance, every statement, every silence began to carry more weight than before. Instead of closing a chapter, the story evolved into something ongoing, something unresolved. And for the royal family, that meant operating under a new kind of pressure. Not just internal expectations, but global scrutiny at a level that was difficult to control. Before we go further, I'd really like to hear your perspective. What do you think changed the most after this moment? Was it the public perception or something deeper within the royal family itself? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment, and your perspective adds a lot to this conversation. One of the most powerful forces at play here is perception. And perception doesn't operate on facts alone. It operates on emotion, interpretation, and narrative. After the separation, people began to form stronger opinions. Some saw it as a bold and necessary step. Others viewed it as a break from tradition that carried consequences. But regardless of where people stood, one thing became clear: the divide in public opinion became sharper. And that division doesn't just exist online. It shapes how the royal family is viewed globally. For an institution built on unity and continuity, that kind of division is not a small issue. It changes how every action is interpreted, every decision is questioned, every silence is analyzed, and over time, that creates pressure that doesn't simply go away. While much of the conversation happens publicly, the internal impact is often less visible, but just as important. When a key figure steps away, it doesn't just remove a presence, it reshapes responsibilities, dynamics, and expectations. Roles shift, attention shifts, and the balance that once existed has to be redefined. But redefining something as complex as the royal family isn't immediate. It takes time. And during that time, uncertainty can grow. Observers began to notice changes, differences in appearances, tone, and communication. Some interpreted these as signs of adaptation. Others saw them as signs of strain. And that difference in interpretation only added to the broader tension. So why did it feel to many like things didn't improve, but instead became more complicated? Because the issue was never just about presence or absence, it was about narrative. And once a narrative reaches a certain level of global attention, it doesn't simply end, it evolves. Each new development adds another layer. Each response, or lack of response, adds another question. And over time, those layers built into something much bigger than the original situation. For many watching from the outside, it created the impression that instead of resolving tension, it had transformed into something more complex, more persistent, not louder, but deeper. What we're really seeing here is not just a personal story, but a structural one, a modern shift meeting a traditional institution, change meeting continuity. And when those forces interact, the result is rarely simple. It's layered, it's evolving, and often it's misunderstood. That's why this story continues to hold attention, because it represents something larger than individuals. It reflects how institutions adapt, or struggle to adapt under pressure. So, when people say things got worse, what they may really be seeing is not decline, but transformation, a shift that is still unfolding. And like any major shift, it brings uncertainty before it brings clarity. The question is no longer just what happened, but what it all means moving forward. If you found this perspective interesting, take a moment to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you enjoy thoughtful, in-depth discussions like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. I'd also genuinely like to hear your thoughts. Do you think things improved or became more complicated after this moment? Let's continue the conversation in the comments.